Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Five a Day. This week we're looking at the joys of Job. Joys, you say? Job? Not two words that seem to go together. Job is synonymous with suffering, and yet, more than that, he's synonymous with somebody that through suffering, through pain, through hardships, through difficulties, was able to stay upright, was able to stay afloat. Why was that? Because of his trust in God, because he realised that God was in control and saw that above his problems. Tim Keller said Job never saw why he suffered, but he saw God, and that was enough. And that for many people in the world is enough. Many people who are suffering through poverty, through hardships. Watched just a little news item the other day reminding us of the problems in Syria, and went into one of the camps in Syria, outside of Syria, where for 7 years people have been there, and it showed a family, and it showed the children growing up, and the expectations where they were, and you realise kind of what it is to really suffer. I think Job realised that, no matter what he was going through, God was with him. Joys of Job. Job actually had friends, which is great, and three of them decided to come and visit him. I don't know how they heard. Facebook equivalent wasn't Zoom, and actually Job had nothing left anyway, so he probably wouldn't have had the technology if it existed. So this is what it says in Job chapter 2. We'd seen already that his wife had said, as she saw him sitting there with nothing and in pain and agony, physically as well as in his heart and in his mentally, etc. She said, just curse God and die. And Job kind of reproved her. But here we got some friends coming along. When three of Job's friends heard of the tragedy that he'd suffered, they got together and travelled from their homes to comfort and console him. Isn't that great that people will do that? These people, they were coming, they were real friends. They weren't coming to get anything from Job because he had nothing to give. He had been an incredibly wealthy man, but these were real friends, and it's great to have real friends. Through these coronavirus times, I think a lot of people have appreciated real friends who have kind of been in contact with them, who have stood with them, who have been a comfort one to another. Their names were Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. When they saw Job from a distance, they scarcely recognised him. Wailing loudly, they tore their robes and threw dust in the air over their heads to show their grief. Clearly, that was part of their custom. And then they sat down on the ground with him. Remember, he was sitting on the ground in the ashes, in the dust of, I suspect, just what was left from a building that had been destroyed. And they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and nights. And no one said a word to Job, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words. Job had friends who came around him. And I love that they just saw, they'd heard, but when they saw the tragedy, they were speechless. And I suspect you've been there, and I've been there several times in my life, that I've seen things that I just can't understand, many of which I will always remember. And you just, what do you say? There is nothing to say. But good friends are around anyway, and the comfort of just being and sitting alongside and sharing for a brief moment, sharing in some way in the grief and the agony was all they could do. They had no fix for his problems. They might have had money that they could give him, I don't know, but they certainly couldn't sort his health issues out. There was nothing to be done, and they couldn't restore the family and everything that he had lost. But they sat with him. They mourned with him. And that's just incredible thing to do. God mourns with us. He grieves with us. He stands with us through suffering and through everything. And we can stand with each other. And I know through these coronavirus times and in the times ahead, the need for people to stand alongside of others, not just their friends, but those around, people in the community, people you never met, people that you're never going to understand, but to go and to stand with them. Job says this in Job chapter 5, verse 11, in the middle of all this suffering, and he looks to God and he says, he sets on high those who are so lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. Job knows that ultimately everyone in every situation is comforted and cared for by God. He knows that maybe at that moment he's not going to see it, but he says elsewhere, I know that my Redeemer lives, and in the last day I will stand with him. At the end we will be together. And that kept him going. And sometimes we need just to cling on to those verses. We just need to cling on to the fact that we know God, the fact that God loves us and cares for us when there is nothing else to cling on to. And that's a joyous message in Job. That's a timeless message. It's a message that are needed by so many people every day in this world. Bless you. Have a great day, and I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow.